We come to this place for monsters. We come to horror movies to scream, to cringe, to scare. Because we need that, all of us.
That hair-raising feeling we get when the lights begin to dim. And we are taken somewhere we've never been before. Not just entertained, but somehow terrorized together.
Dazzling guts on a huge silver screen. Stabs that I can feel.
Somehow, murder feels so good in a place like this.
Our final girls feel like the best parts of us, and stories feel disturbing and powerful. Because here they are.
In horror we trust.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, hello, friends.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
It's been a while since we last chat.
Yeah, but today we're talking about a new film. Dun dun dun. In a Violent Nature.
In a violent nature.
Sorry.
Sound of music. Sound of killing.
I'm just gonna regroup for a second.
Sound of walking.
So, In a Violent Nature is directed by Chris Nash, who's most notably known for Z for Zygote in the anthology series ABCs of Death.
Oh, nice.
He was also the set creative effects supervisor in Psycho Gorman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's got his hands in some fun stuff.
That is so cool. I did hear that he was a special effects coordinator.
Yeah.
Or had to do with special effects. And we can definitely see
His
see it
influence.
reflected.
Absolutely.
Yes. But that's so cool. Love Psycho Gorman. So fun.
So good. So, In a Violent Nature is when a group of teens takes a locket from a collapsed tower in the woods. They unwittingly resurrect the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred by a horrific 60-year-old crime. The undead killer soon embarks on a bloody rampage to retrieve the stolen locket, while methodically slaughtering anyone who gets in his way. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Google.
Yes. Johnny boy.
I mean, there's nothing more to that plot. That's pretty much exactly what happens in this film.
Yes. Quite an interesting and different way that they chose to show it, though.
I think this is one of the most creative angles I've seen taken on a horror movie in a very long time. Yeah. It's something I feel like we have yet to discover, and it puts kind of a cool twist on something that we have seen before. So yes. It definitely makes it interesting, and I feel like it felt like a perfect mesh of The Burning, Friday the 13th, and a video game had a baby.
Nice.
And that to me was In a Violent Nature in all the best ways possible.
Yes. Like, play the Friday the 13th game as Jason. Boom. But it makes, definitely evokes that feeling for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. And while I think Johnny and Jason do share some parallels, I think they're two very different villains in their own right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, first thoughts. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you wish it was... I know a big thing for people has been they felt it was slow.
Right.
And they felt it was boring. Mm-hmm. So, like, initial kind of feelings, thoughts, anything that super stood out to you?
I did like it off the bat. I liked it a lot. I guess, and thinking about it more after, part of me almost feels like I was disappointed that I didn't get, like, scared. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that meant it was a bad movie. And I don't even know if I would use the word disappointed anymore.
Okay.
It's an observation that I didn't exactly feel like scared. I didn't get the kind of usual scared feeling I expect to get from a horror film, or
Yeah.
that sometimes I hope for. But like, this was very different, and it made me feel a lot of things, and maybe not scared in the way that I had anticipated, but I still thought it was a great film, and it's in no way detracts from the experience I had watching it. It's just a different, completely different experience, and we'll get into this more, but I would say tension was super high watching this film, especially towards the end as it started going on. But yeah, overall, I did really like it, and it was different. And I knew, I obviously knew watching it. I was like, this is not going to hit some people.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to lose some people.
I say I agree with pretty much most of what you're saying. I thought the movie was really well done. I definitely can see where people would decide that this movie is not for them. But I was not one of those people. I thought, I genuinely don't think I had an expectation going into this movie.
Nice.
We'd heard things that it, obviously it's a POV. It's going to be a lot of following the main character around. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. Like, I can deal with slow.
Right.
And then from that point on, I was just kind of like, okay, like, let's see what this is all about.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be in for the ride.
You know what? I think that expectation I had going in of like the kind of scared feeling just literally just comes from how preconditioned I am with slashers and the typical jump scares and sound cues and kind of effects you get watching a slasher, because I knew it was a slasher. So I think that was just like passively my mind, that's kind of what I was expecting. And
I think you hold some truth to that, though, because the way that this movie plays out is formulaic in that sense. It is very much the trope of a traditional slasher film. So I think while we're sitting there and the plot is kind of unveiling itself to us, we're like, okay, when is that moment going to happen? Like, we're staring off into the trees. Something's going to pop out in the foreground. And it doesn't happen, and it just kind of you like cling on to that like anxiety that's just sitting there, and then it just cuts to a different shot, and you're kind of left there and you're like, oh, okay. So there was a lot of those moments, but I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing. It just again wasn't what either of us were expecting,
which is what made it so unique and I think so cool. And just talking about how it was formulaic with slashers, that was one of the so it follows a lot of the tropes of slasher films, but at the same time it like averts them and kind of turns them upside down. I'm trying to think of like moments that kind of show that. I know Adam and I were talking, and the idea of less is more in horror and slasher films specifically, like not revealing the killer until like the right moment to get that scare, but we're with them the entire time. It's just what an interesting like experience for a viewer to have.
I agree, and I kind of like that it has so many themes that kind of juxtapose each other in that sense, because I know we say this often, but I feel like some of these movies that have come out lately are such a love letter to the genre, because it does have those super predictable moments, but it almost feels like fanfare in a way where us horror fans, we know to expect it, and then we can just sit there and have fun with it.
Right.
Like, for instance, I know we were all talking about this after we saw it, but like the dumb cop situation at the end, where he has like none of the cops are smart in horror movies. Right. And like, we know to expect the cop to either say something stupid, like get everyone killed, get himself killed. And we're just kind of waiting and anticipating for that moment and seeing how it's going to play out and if we're going to get a laugh out of it. Or so moments like that, I think, made the movie more fun, because we kind of had an expectation, but we still were like, where are they specifically going to go with this?
Right. And
so
and it's almost extra fun to kind of view it in the killer's eyes of like, look at this fucking chump. Like, I'm just walking up to you and you're just dying right now. What have you been doing?
And I think that aspect of it where you're in his point of view is just it's not only interesting, but the way that they kind of portrayed it, I think sets it more in a video game kind of sense in my mind, where it feels like we're playing this like quest game where like what's gonna happen next. We met these characters. Like it kept reminding me of the Quarry.
Yeah.
As I was playing it.
Oh, how fun. Yes.
And or as I was playing it, as I was watching it. And after thinking about it and looking back, I think one of the reasons why I was so easily like, this is a video game, is the way that the camera was sitting and the way that it was poised. So to have it sit behind the main character to the side and you're following him around is as if you were sitting at your TV playing a video game. The character's always like right in front of you, kind of leading the way and leading the path. And matched with the sound design is what I really wanted to get into next.
Well, just first to go off on the video game perspective
pause,
like that,
pause.
Just I mean, just furthermore, you know when he'd be watching like two characters talking in the distance and you see one of them go off, then the other one stay there like at the dock.
Yes.
So then he's kind of like, which path do you take? Which one do you want to kill? A, B, boom. And then he goes for that one first. And, yeah.
No, that's really, I didn't see that, but now that you mention it, I'm like, that totally is.
Option A, option B.
And another cool thing about sound is I think having no score and only having very few moments of like diegetic music playing because like the characters are listening to music really played off of that like video game kind of aspect. And one of the moments where it was so clear is just Johnny walking around and listening to his footsteps. Yeah. Each crunch his shoe left, like over the dead leaves or the twigs, or sounded so different and so robust and so clear. It literally felt like you were walking through a video game. Right. Like it was so impressive. Yeah. And I just want to shout out the sound design people because I think they deserve a shout out. Absolutely. So the Foley recordist and designer is Tim Atkins, and the Foley artist and designer is Michelle. I do not want to butcher her last name. It's HWU. Nice. Both great. Fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, the sound design.
Yeah, which is also like, before we even watched this, you had kind of heard that people were calling it ASMR horror, which is
so fitting.
Yeah, and that immediately caught our attention. We're like, what is that? I want to know what that is about. Like,
we're like, is it going to be disgusting? Is it going to... Which it does.
Definitely
it does play in on that.
There's one specific part in mind for me that they really just... I mean, it's pretty obvious, but drive it in, drill it into your brain, and it like sticks with you. But yeah, sound... amazing in this film.
Impeccable.
Very, very effective.
I agree.
Respect your sound, people, guys. Yes. It is so, so important for a film. It makes or breaks. Especially a horror film.
Give them the credit they fucking deserve.
Yeah. Adam. Just kidding.
Another kind of area that I feel like intensified this whole video game feel and intensified the sound design was the aspect ratio in which it was filmed. I think the 4:3 just kind of forces you to be up close and center with what's going on in the film, and it doesn't distract by that wide shot and stuff going on in the background. You're just kind of zoomed in on Johnny and like what he's gonna do next. So I think that definitely helped.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to read this review on Letterboxd that I thought was pretty well said and I agree with. So this one was written by Cinema Joe. And so he says, reinventing the slasher genre is a nearly impossible task. And while I won't declare In a Violent Nature does this, it gets pretty damn close. A movie that reverse engineers the jump scare and forces you to sit with the dread of the inevitable. A conversation is heard in the distance, and we are forced to follow every step of Johnny's hunt, and it is endlessly harrowing. Its pacing will be why people look away and pull their phone out, but I beg that you don't. It's as close as to watching a wild animal hunt its prey as a film can get. And like the bear that catches its prey, the results are relentlessly gruesome.
I really like that review. I like what he said about reversing the jump scare.
Yes.
Because that is exactly what that does.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, in a typical slasher film, really kind of relies on a lot of the jump scares, and it builds up so much tension. You don't know where it's coming from necessarily. Maybe, I mean, as time went on, we knew to expect it, like we were saying before. But, you know, this one, we're with him the whole time, yet there's still moments, I would say, particularly at the end when it's like the two final characters, where he still kind of like surprises you.
Yeah.
Like, you're with him the whole time, but he still has such veracity that like it still kind of gets you excited and hyped, and you're like, oh, you know. So that was really well done, that you can still get that effect with completely stripping the movie down from the usual style kind of or formula. Sound cues. Yeah, and structure. Very impressive.
I think to play off of that too, the fact that there's no moment where we're poised on anticipation of the reveal of like who the killer is. Like we're smack dab with him the whole damn time.
Yes.
And so that anticipation never quite happens when you're watching him interact with the people, his victims, essentially. It's just kind of like, well, what is he going to do to them, as opposed to who's going to pop out.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And which is an interesting dynamic.
Oh yeah. And like you said, a wild animal hunting his prey is like super accurate. I know Adam and I were talking about this. Did a great job of showing that unkillable killer or like almost entity that's, you know, obviously superhuman. And I know they make that kind of obvious in this, but just with this particular perspective and structure of the film, I think it did like even a better job than like some of the newer, you know, like in the newer Halloweens, how they're kind of trying to drive that point home of how like just Michael Myers is over the head with it. This like, you know, something that's not even human, but like this one showed that in such a feral way, yet it was so like quiet.
I'm curious to know what was the point in the film where like you realize that okay, there's something more to him. Like obviously this is like he's got some sort of supernatural element to him, but I think the point in the film where it was really driven home for me was when he was walking to get the girl on the lake. And he literally, I remember talking to you guys about it afterwards, and I was like, did he just walk the bottom of the lake bed? Yeah. Because it did not look like this man swam through the water. Yeah. And
no wake.
It was, none whatsoever.
No bubbles coming up.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Like, he's got more to him than just, like, your typical, what you would think of, like, and not to compare the two, but, like, Ghostface or anything like that, you know? Like, he's maybe not the easiest to kill.
Right. Squirrely villain. Yeah. Sorry, Ghost. I was thinking of Ghostface. Yes. Touching on the lake scene in particular, this is from another review on Letterboxd by Josh Lewis, that I think he brings up an interesting point. He says, but even more impressive to me were its moments that resisted typical genre film enjoyment and just became kind of amusingly unpleasant and pathetic, like a lake drowning sequence that not only has no thrilling cutaways to the victim's experience or dramatic score, but doesn't even have a gore gag punctuation and is simply filmed in a long shot of Johnny slowly sinking beneath the surface and then a body 50 feet away being pulled under. Or another where Johnny's overhearing the climactic dialogue where the kids are figuring out their plan to kill him. That obviously isn't going to work. Followed by the obligatory shock gore gag that bleeds into the realm of an uneasy rhythmic droning as it continues to go on. So first, to like look at the lake scene, that was one of the points where it almost felt initially underwhelming, because you were used to seeing, like, you would expect to see the kill more intimately, I guess, more closely. we're fucked up. But you know, you don't see anything happening. Her body just kind of floats up. It's not like dramatic necessarily, but I mean, it's really sticking true to just following him. It's realistic. And it still shows that what the fuck, he just walked the lake bed over to this girl and sucked her under.
I remember sitting there thinking, wait, that's it? We just saw like a couple bubbles like surface, and then it was just, and I think the way that the camera just clung to that as well, like it lingered there for so long, we were like, okay, the camera's sitting here for a while, like what's gonna happen? Right. And then nothing did, and it was kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, so it's interesting that they didn't show, I think maybe it's just because of this perspective they're taking on, that the camera is like, I don't know, not gonna go under the water with him. I don't know.
Which would have been very weird if it was super realistic.
It would take you out of it. Yeah. That would be weird. So, because it's interesting, it shows so much for certain kills, but not so much for this one. But maybe it's just particularly what would make this perspective most effective and like stick true to it. I don't know. And
I think it's a little bit of just buildup of the film in general. Right. Like, it's one of the first moments that we see Johnny in action. And so it's a little kind of leading your way into some of the bigger stuff.
True. Yeah. Simple. That's simple as that, maybe. But
it's kind of fun to speculate.
Yeah. I want to save this kill because he talks about the two characters. Yeah. It's kind of a comedic moment, which I kind of like that they kept some almost campiness or corniness from the slasher genre in this, but in such a different way.
I feel like, without saying too much about it quite yet, like I don't know how effective it would have been if it didn't lean into the B, like the B-rated feel, if it was just super realistic, like I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't think it would have been nearly as effective. And in this sense, it felt very, again, I keep going back to this theme, but it felt very video game. Like, it felt very, this specific kill felt very Mortal Kombat, like, kind of situation.
Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah. It's kind of interesting to think about a lot of stuff that, and how they did it in this film from this perspective. I'm saying that word a lot. Would not be effective in a traditional format or traditional style of horror slasher.
Speaking on that, just since we're talking about kind of the kills and the special effects and the gore, and we're talking about the style of this film. So I read an interesting article from the avclub.com, and it was an interview with Steven Kostanski, who is the special effects artist. Nice. And in this interview, Steven said, he, referring to Chris Nash, told me once he re-edited, I believe, Friday the 13th Part 5 and took all of the Jason stuff out, or the fake Jason stuff. So it's essentially just becoming a character study of all these weirdos. He always comes up with this stuff in like very unique ways, which I think is very telling, because Steven and Chris Nash have worked on multiple projects together. Okay. And I think right there is very telling of, you know, his unique style and how he wanted to interpret this movie. And then how I would even say the kills and the gore are very unique in their own way, even though it is all blanketed under the genre of horror.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, going off that, did you have a favorite kill? Or should we get into this?
Yes.
I think it might be everyone's favorite kill.
It's the yoga kill. I'm sorry. It's so batshit. It was great.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many slashers or just like kills in horror movies, and we could still be surprised.
Yeah. I think while I was sitting there, I was just like, where is this going? And then every time I thought it was like done,
Yeah.
it just kept going.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was pure insanity. Do
Twi-
you want to tell everyone what the scene
gosh.
is?
Okay. Yes.
Maybe is.
So, should I be detailed?
Yeah, do it.
I don't
Okay.
know. Okay.
Be detailed.
So, Johnny Boy is
So it's been a while since we've seen this movie. We've only seen it
weeks,
once.
yeah.
But from what like Carissa and I and Adam recall,
yeah. Okay.
this is how this scene unfolds.
Johnny walks up to this girl doing yoga on the cliffside, overlooking the cliff. And she sees him, screams, tries to run away, comes to the edge of the cliff, can't go down there. And then he walks right up behind her, punches through her back, through her stomach, out the front. Her organs and shit all spilling out. Blood coming out of her mouth. He turns her around, takes his logging hook, sticks it right in the top of her skull, and then he basically pulls the chain or whatever that's linked to the logging hook down and through the hole in her body, and like basically keeps pulling it until it like breaks her neck forward and pulls her whole head through the gigantic gaping hole in her stomach and out the other side.
So she literally turned her into a pretzel.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the most advanced yoga position I've ever seen. I'm just kidding.
This is why I said it felt very Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like a finish him moment.
Absolutely.
Like absolutely.
Yeah, that one was great. I think everyone in the theater let out a little something like,
People
shit.
were shitting. They were giggling.
Yeah.
Like people were just kind of like, what is happening?
It's just one of probably the most memorable kill
Yeah.
I've seen in a long time.
A very long time.
Easily, it's going to be iconic for a while.
Yeah.
Forever.
And then can we talk about, again, going back to sound, how there's no score.
Right.
So you're
listening.
nobody's talking, nobody's screaming.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just sitting there listening to the sounds that Johnny is inflicting onto poor yoga girl.
Yeah.
And you're forced to sit there with it. So
you really get the like strength and just furious.
Yeah.
Like a wild animal, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But a creative wild animal.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. An artiste.
Again, going back to this theme of the juxtaposition, so we go from the lake scene where we saw nothing.
This is right after.
To the yoga scene where we see everything and more.
Yeah. He also kicks her fucked up body down the cliffside, and you just see this super like far shot of it just rolling down.
It was like add insult to injury.
Yeah. It's one of those kills that horror movie lovers just like get so excited over, because it makes you laugh, but in a way that's just like, wow, this is just crazy and incredible.
I think I audibly went, oh, like throughout the entire scene.
Yeah.
It was gross.
My jaw dropped. The whole time I was just like stunned.
Yeah. It's like witnessing a train wreck in the most morbid way.
Right.
Like you want to turn your face, but you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty impressive.
You know?
And man, that FX makeup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just chef's kiss.
Yeah. I mean, when the body, like that one guy, the kind of funny guy with the headphones at the beginning. I think it's the first victim. Second one.
He goes to that house.
Oh yeah, that one fucking dude. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Second victim.
Sorry.
But you know, and he's carrying around his like body and stuff. But just like the expression on the face and everything, and the way that he just fucking throws it around. Yeah. Anyway, go watch it.
Yes, definitely.
My second favorite kill is the last one.
Was it the wood chipper? Not the wood chipper.
No.
The log splitter.
No, it's where it's the two final.
Yeah.
And I want to go over this one because I did love that moment. This moment made me very happy because it's just the play on the tropes again, and like So we're down to our last two teens, our last two survivors. And it's a guy and a girl that are kind of like having a little love affair. So Johnny's following them. It's dark in the woods. And you hear them. So they go to hide. And you hear them whispering. And it's loud ass fucking whispering. Because it's always funny when you think of a typical slasher, when they start whispering in the quiet woods, you're like, you shouldn't fucking do that. You know he's going to pop up behind you or whatever. Whispering's loud in a fucking quiet place where no one else is talking. He's going to hear it. And so the camera's just on Johnny.
Yeah.
You don't see them because they're hiding, but you hear them. And it's loud. They like purposefully make their whispers super loud too. And so they basically lay out what they're going to do. Like, I'm going to distract him. You go, this way, blah, blah, blah. And so the male teen jumps out behind Johnny to distract him. He's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And like, before he could even finish his sentence, Johnny just whips around, big ass axe right into his face, just like gash, basically splits his head open and against the tree, or I don't know.
I think it was against the tree.
But it was so fast. And when we're used to following him and his slow trot, that I think these moments really like surprise you. But specifically this one, the moment was so perfect because it's just like it sounded all momentous, like this is how we're gonna get out, these are the last two, and then he's just like, nope. And it made me laugh. Like I audibly was just like, ha. But then he just goes ham on this guy. Like, it was just this point where they really show him as, like, this feral fucking just animal.
Beast.
Beast.
He is.
And then our final girl, which, again, another trope that they have. She's just watching this go down because she's supposed to be, like, having her chance to escape right now. But she's so stunned at how fast it just did not go their way. Or, and he's just hacking away till this dude is just nothing but a bloody pulp on the ground. And you can't even really see his body at that point, but all you need to see is like Johnny's motion of he's just like over and over, and the sound so good here specifically. Yeah. Because it just really drives it into your brain, hammers it, hacks it into your brain. Literally. But what I like about that part too is that it's interesting. They switch perspectives at that point. They switch it over to the final girls, and we're following her for like a good amount of the rest of the film.
Yeah, I think it carries on over to the very last second. Mm-hmm.
And that's where we have moments where I feel the most like tense and like the suspense has built up so far because we're so used to seeing where Johnny is and like following him, and now we don't know where he is and we're just following the final girls.
But I think that was done purposefully. Yeah, I know a lot of people have said that they did not like the ending and that the ending was pointless and it was boring and they wanted something to happen and nothing happened. But I think that switch in perspectives was done so purposefully. Because now we're not in Johnny's point of view anymore. So we're not just like kind of following along with him in his journey, like kind of knowing what to expect, what's going to happen. Yeah. We're now in the final girls where she doesn't know what's going to happen. And she's kind of tense and we're kind of tense because we're anticipating it the way she's supposed to be anticipating it. So now we're truly in her shoes, in her point of view.
Yeah. I'm like, why not? Yeah. Like, why does a movie have to be one thing? Why can't it change like that? I think it definitely made me super anxious and like made the stakes feel higher.
Oh, absolutely. And we were like getting frustrated at the woman in the car. We're like, what are you doing? Like, stop it. And it just totally puts you like, it switched gears so suddenly and you didn't like, I didn't even realize how much I was like, first I was rooting for Johnny to fuck up all these teens and now I'm hoping for this girl. I'm like, come on, you're almost out. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting how there's that like that duality there. Yeah. Like within one film.
Right. And I think it reminds you of like how nothing is safe in these movies, you know? Like,
absolutely.
because there were moments where that lady who's helping her is like, oh, is she like related to him? Or is she in on it somehow? Or what's gonna happen? But like the sound as she's running, stumbling through the woods too, they take the repetitive hacking, and they like incorporate it into the sound design where it's just this droning hum that she's like hearing. So it's also still her perspective, because I feel she's so traumatized just having witnessed that.
Yeah.
That it's just playing over and over in her head. And also Adam made a good note of like, it kind of sounds like his footsteps too, like following her along.
It's a little bit like you're being thrown into the mind of somebody who's still in shock, but also simultaneously dealing with like PTSD of the situation. Yeah. So she's like, you're just smack dab in the middle of that fear. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was super effective.
I liked it. I honestly don't have any, excuse me, I don't have any complaints. I do want to ask, do you have a favorite scene in the movie? Whether it's a kill, whether it's a moment, whether it's a shot, whether it's an edit. Just like a favorite point.
I want to watch it. Yeah, please.
My favorite point in this movie, where I think it just kind of set the tone for me, is when the teens are sitting around the campfire and the camera is just circling them.
Yes.
Like with what you said about Johnny being this like hunter going after his prey, very animalistic. That's what it felt like. It felt like wolves like circling a group of people. It felt like we weren't supposed to specifically focus on the people in the frame, but listen to what they were saying. And I kept looking out into the distance, being like, is he going to pop out? Like, where is he coming from? And the more that the camera just spun around them, the more that anticipation and anxiety just built and built and built. And I just thought that was so brilliantly executed. Yeah. Like, it was, masterclass. It was great.
I think hearing your thoughts on that and me remembering it now, yes, I'll have to agree with you. I think that is, definitely the point where it did set the tone. Yeah. And I did like how they would show him barely, because it's super dim lighting. You would see him very like fuzzy, faintly in the back, just watching his like, who's gonna fuck up. And you know, when they take the picture, the picture of the group all together, and he's gonna be in it. Yeah. But in a typical movie, they would probably show them looking through the picture and being like, "What's that?" Yeah. But you don't have that moment, which I think is like, it's different, and I feel like it feels more. It's just not. It doesn't. Yeah. Not typical and cheesy. But they do mention that, like, who's that guy in the picture? So it's like, it gives you enough to get the idea or whatever. I also love the dialogue between the teens, because I feel like they keep the corniness, like it's cheesy dialogue, and part of you is like, who talks like that? But also it's kind of funny and entertaining. I think they keep it modern too. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that was another point that I was reading in reviews that people disliked, was that they thought that the dialogue was just stupid, I guess.
The slashers have stupid dialogue.
Absolutely. But they have ridiculous dialogue because you're not supposed to care about the characters. Mm-hmm. Like, at least in movies, when slasher movies were super, super popularized, like, you're not going to the movie to see these characters. Like, it was a plus when you had a final girl, but you were going to see, like, the Jasons or the Michaels just slaughter everyone in the movie.
And I think people look back at the older slashers and find the dialogue kitschy. Yeah. Where they think it's cool almost. Yeah. But, like, if you really listen to it, it's fucking dumb. Yes. Like, I feel like it's the same effect.
But honestly, if you think about it, like, as teenagers, we were dumb. We were talking about dumb shit. Like, we didn't have dialogue of substance. Yes, so absolutely. I think it worked.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that was very interesting. I'd like to turn it to Adam.
Hello.
I don't know. Do you want to ask him anything? Yes. Like your thoughts or, like, favorite scenes, favorite kill? Any lasting impressions?
No, I liked it a lot. I think that it's interesting because I feel like one scene I really liked is like when they show Johnny's face. He like takes off the mask and he's like looking at the fire truck and stuff. Um, it's interesting because like I really didn't expect that at all. It like most of the movie is like it's very indifferent. Like I feel like that's like really the tone of the film is indifferent. Like most scary movies, most horror films are like they tell you how to feel. It's like this is bad, this is scary, they're in danger, and then you see like the jump scares and you kind of like get a sense of it. But this one, it's like he's killing, but it is like watching like yeah from a trail cam or something where it doesn't feel a particular way about it. It just shows you exactly what's happening. And I think that was like the one moment in the film where it's like you get a sense that there's like some sort of life in him, and then it just jumps back into like he's this force of nature. And yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But I like that I feel like it's interesting because like Christine, you said that people said like the dialogue was kind of corny and stuff, and I had seen another review like that where they said it was most of the film takes itself too seriously, and then there's corny dialogue which plays against it. But I fully disagree with that.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the film knows what it is. Like the yoga, like I feel like at most slashers they'll have like a sense of it's like a sense of humor where some of the some of the kills are punchlines to what a character is, and you see that very clearly with like the yoga thing. It's like she's contorting so much like because she's a yoga character. And like yeah, with the last kill with the boyfriend, it's like so anticlimactic. Like you could basically even say like the punchline is he's like killed, is like it's splitting down his head basically, where it's like he's in over his head in a plan that doesn't work, you know.
True.
But like yeah, I think it fits so perfectly because like it takes those tropes and it just makes it's like you're indifferent about it, but I think some people might have needed like the score to like lead them along to make them feel like comfortable with what was happening. Yeah, but I like that it doesn't.
Very well said.
Yes.
No, I feel like that's very true. That I think people are just very used and conditioned to like movies telling them how to feel, you know.
Yeah.
So when they see something that definitely diverts from that and you don't get that, they don't know how to feel, and so they feel like maybe some people just get the sense that like, oh, they didn't do anything with it, they didn't follow through with something, and I just didn't take it that way. I think it was still effective, and you know, it's okay to be indifferent. It was still super entertaining, and I don't know, cool perspective.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how else we can play with this form.
I'm really curious if this is going to kind of kickstart the slasher genre in a new direction. Not necessarily to have like a whole bunch of different movies be in like POV, but just like the creativeness of kind of doing something different with our slasher films.
You can do something just out of the box and like not follow the same stuff, or at least just play with it in a different way. Yeah.
Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I liked it.
Yeah, I did like it. I got to do a second watch soon. Did you watch it a second time?
I haven't, not yet, but
nice.
I definitely want to.
Nice. Heck yeah. Yeah, guys, it should be streaming on Shudder, I believe, soon. If not already. I believe this episode will be released July, the first Wednesday of July.
Yes.
So it's probably going to be out by then. Remember, guys, catch us the first Wednesday of every month.
Yeah.
So, hey, I noticed this box of bear traps it's empty. Am I good to take a piss in the woods right now, or?
Yeah, man, go for it. I mean,
well, you gotta go when you gotta go.
All right, I guess I'm gonna go, but yeah, I'll be right back.
Well, he's done for.
sayonara.